What is leadership?
Nathan?
So I think leadership has mostly an objective, qualitative definition. A lot of people tend to put some sort of morality around it. That drives me absolutely crazy. Leadership, from my perspective, is essentially a person who's in charge of accomplishing something, and they have to involve other people to do it. They have a team of people to do it, and they are the one who is ultimately responsible for the accomplishment of that thing. And so that is trying to make it as basic of a definition as possible. I don't care who says it. You'll see it on LinkedIn all the time. Like, if you micromanage your people, you're a dictator, not a leader. No, you're a leader. You're just a leader who's a dictator. Okay? So quit trying to, it's such a huge pet peeve of mine. Quit trying to put all this, you're a leader, not a leader. Like, if you can be a terrible leader in a leadership role, you're still a leader. You're just not a very good one. Or you can be a really nasty human being who's in a leadership position. You're still a leader. You're just a leader who's a nasty human being.
Yeah, I would say a leader is a person that has a vision that he can get other people on board for to follow him. That's, I think, right out of the dictionary, the definition of it. And I agree with Nathan. There's no morality aspect of it. We can all think of terrible people that led millions of people. So that person was a strong leader. He was very good at it, or she was very good at it, right? There's also examples of good people who were leaders. They would be strong leaders, had a lot of people follow them. The other side of that coin, if you're strong as a leader, you can get a bunch of people to follow you, chasing this vision that they all get on board for and believe in. The other side of that coin is a poor leader. I can't get a lot of people. We hear this all the time. People don't want to work, they're lazy. But I just look around and I go, well, wait a minute. You look at these larger companies that have 170 salespeople. Well, somebody wants to work. So it's one of those things where I would challenge folks, and this is a bit of a tough pill to swallow sometimes. If people don't want to work for you, you might want to take a look in the mirror on your leadership skills. Have you put in the effort to grow as a leader, to learn the skills that you need to learn to be a great leader? This isn't some God-given talent. It's not like God goes, oh, you're a great leader. Now, there are people that have natural predications that afford them the opportunity to lead easier, but anybody can learn to be a leader because the skills are like any other skill of being a carpenter or being anything that's a profession. Lots of folks become professional leaders. Look at any CEO, CFO, COO. They are professional leaders. They have put in the time to learn the necessary skills to get a group of people to follow them on a vision that they believe in because it benefits them as much as it benefits the company. So they're on board for it.
So what's the difference between a bad leader, a good leader, and a great leader? Because that's something that both of you kind of talked about. You can be bad but still be in that role.
Correct.
Or you can be great and be in that role. It's just, are you a good one, a bad one, or a great one? So what's the difference there?
Let's get clear on that. Because you're talking about that morality thing.
Yeah.
Whenever you use the word bad or good, people associate morality with that, like a good person or a bad person. So I don't use that whenever I use the term leadership. I don't think people are bad or good leaders. I think they're strong or poor or weak.
Okay.
And I want people to get really clear on that, because a bad person could be a great leader. We can all see examples, like I said.
Could we maybe substitute, would you maybe substitute the word effective for ineffective versus good versus bad versus strong versus weak? Like, you're an effective leader, capable leader, or you're an ineffective leader or incapable leader?
I think you could substitute the words. I think they mean the same thing: effective, ineffective, strong, poor. I think too many people get this, that guy was a bad leader. I might have been a really good leader, as we would look at it from the terms of effective, like he was getting a lot out of what it was. They just didn't like him because He's a bad person, right? So I think we got to be really clear on that, hey, one of the best examples I can think of is Steve Jobs. Dude was such a rough person as a leader, making millions and billions and trillions of dollars for a company that they fired him. And their business took a dive. So much so that they hired him back and then fired him again and then hired him back again.
Yeah.
So he was a strong leader that could get what was necessary for that company to achieve their goals because of who he was, but people didn't want to work for him. People didn't like him. Certain people did like him because he got a lot out of people, right? And so you got to know that whoever you are as a leader, whoever you hire wants to be like you. They see themselves becoming you as a leader. And that's a pretty, I don't know, I take that as a pretty serious responsibility.
There's a number of different things that go into it. It's nuanced. So some people might say a good leader is the person who accomplishes the objective set before them. I would agree with that. If you were set to do a thing and you get that thing done with the people around you, that's good leadership. Now, whether that thing was morally reprehensible or morally upright, right? That's kind of where we're making that, parsing that out. I think that a marker of great leaders would be how much people willingly desire to follow them. That's a big one. Is how when you look at somebody and people go, I want to be on that person's team, or even in a neutral setting, people just kind of, they tend to gravitate towards that person, and when that person sets out to do a thing, people just want to be a part of it and join it. I wouldn't say that's an ultimate definition, but that's a marker of a powerful leader. Now, sometimes people get involuntarily placed underneath somebody else's leadership, and that person helps them, inspires them, gets them to accomplish that objective from the leadership perspective. That's a good leader. And poor leaders, I think, they muddy the waters of the objective and the thing that people are trying to accomplish, or their own goals, or the primary goal, and cause strife and frustration inside of getting that done. So I'm trying to be very black and white about it, but everybody's had a lot of experiences where they've worked with good leaders and they've worked with poor leaders, and it's one of those things where you kind of know it when you see it a little bit. And you go, man, that I really like that person and that person. So you can have people that you like very much that aren't really a great leader. You just like them, and that's okay. And then some people, I think a real big marker is just how willing are people to voluntarily follow them.
Yeah, you sit there and we can all look at experiences probably in our lives where we've worked for other people and what they were in their leadership, and nobody that I've ever worked for do I go, that was just an awful person. There have been cases. I know, for sure. But I thought that at one point.
Right.
But then as I've thought back about it, there were certain aspects of what they did as a leader that I go, I see that drive aspect of it. I see that really push aspect of it. I see that really strong drive and dedication towards this thing, come hell or high water, regardless of anybody. And that can be a very valuable asset when it's tempered with the other side. Mm-hmm. And so while they may have been an ineffective, poor leader, they may have had an asset to them that was actually very valuable.
Sure.
I think a lot of people get put into a position of leadership without being given the training or skills to be a leader.
That happens all the time. Yeah. I agree.
So let me ask you this, because that kind of leads me to my next question. Are leaders made, or are they born? I think that's a question a lot of people, as I've heard that debate over the course of my lifetime. Are they made, or are they born? Because we're talking about putting people into leadership roles. Can you make somebody a good leader, or do they just are they born with that innate ability to lead?
I've bounced back and forth on this one a little bit. I do believe that certain people are born with, and maybe not even born, but maybe nurtured, might be a better way to put that, in their environment growing up, usually between the ages of 5 and 15 or so, that they've been put into situations that it seems innate, but they've really kind of been taught. They probably had a natural predication for it, but that doesn't mean they're going to be a great leader. They still have to get the skill side of it. I've seen people that had the worst possible situation during that nature or nurturing side of things become amazing leaders because they dedicated themselves to the discipline of learning the skills to become a great leader. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I think it's both and neither. This is such a hard question. I think it is both. I think some people, like you said, they have an innate, they have qualities in them that give them a little bit of a leg up in the development of leadership. And then there are people who maybe don't have those qualities, and those qualities need to be developed. But sometimes some people are strong here and they're weak over here, and that weakness needs work, and the strength also contributes. So it's almost like trying to define why somebody's good at a particular thing. Were they born that way, or did they develop it? And the answer is both, pretty much every time. I mean, people have innate talent. You look at athletes. Athletes have talent. Sometimes you look at them and just genetically, some athletes, you just look at them and genetically, and you're like, that is a different human being.
Like Tyreek Hill, he's the fastest person to ever run in the NFL. He's just born different.
Yeah, so there is that component.
And I would argue that yes, he does have that for sure. And lots of people, like you said, have talent. There's also lots of people that don't have a lot of talent that have superseded the people with talent because of the discipline and effort they put into the skills.
Yes, that's why it's both. Because
that's why the guys like a Tyreek Hill, while yes, naturally predicated toward applying the discipline and
also still had to build it.
He blew it out of the water.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Well, Jordan got cut from his JV basketball team in high school, or the varsity basketball team in high school. He went back, put the work in over the summer. He came back, and now he's the greatest basketball player that's ever lived.
But here's what I would say though. Just like athletics, just like mental acuity, it's something that if you really want to be good at it, you got to work at it, no matter how much natural talent you have toward it. You still got it. You still are going to have to work on it if you want to be excellent.
Yeah, if you want to be effective, it's going to take the discipline to the work on the skills, no matter how much natural gifting you may have.
So no matter what leader you bring into your company, what I'm understanding is there still needs to be like a training and mentoring from the actual person who is over the company to ensure, or maybe not, I don't know.
If he has the ability, he might not have that ability. We see it all the time, and I'm not trying to be mean or rude to anybody, but I was very fortunate. I got really, really lucky in my lifetime. I think Nathan has had some of that type of stuff too, where the first company I ever worked for, that was a big part of their thing. It was two sides of a coin. They wanted us to be great salespeople, so we got great sales training. I mean, I've been to anything and everything you could ever be on sales goes. They were also big on leadership. They didn't believe that they were the best leaders, but they believed getting the training from some of the best leaders that existed on the planet out there would make us more effective as leaders in their company and thus grow them too. And so they would send us to leadership training, but they would attend with us. It wasn't just a, hey, you go learn it and get better than me. They wanted to be great as well. And I think that you really need to take account of yourself as an owner. Are you truly that great leader that you should be or not? And I think even today, I'm like, man, I'm a long ways away from where I want to be. I want to be better than, I'm constantly striving for excellence.
So what does that conversation need to look like when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, when you're trying to figure out, am I a good leader? Or am I an effective leader? Am I ineffective? Am I strong? Am I poor? You know, like in the different areas, because there's different areas of leadership. It's not just one all-encompassing thing. But what does that conversation look like when you're really trying to be honest with yourself?
Do you have a lot of people that want to follow you and choose to follow you? And not only do they want to follow you and they choose to follow you, but do they continue to follow you over a sustained amount of time? Because if they don't follow you over a sustained amount of time, you're not a leader, you're a salesperson. You were able to convince them that getting involved with you was a good thing and you could hire a bunch of people. But if you're having a lot of turnover in your organization, it's probably likely that you could be a more effective leader.
This is a broad general statement, and I think I'm willing to say also a truth, and that would be that the beginning of any self-development or growth starts with self-awareness. And so if you want to increase your leadership ability, you have got to become aware of yourself from an outside perspective. This is one of the most difficult things, I think, for human beings to do. To be able to objectively look at yourself, and I don't think it's 100% possible, because you can't look at yourself objectively 100% of the time and 100% objectively, but at least striving to look in the mirror and then ask yourself questions like, what are common things I see with people around me? When I'm talking to people, what are common ways people respond to me? When I'm dealing with an issue, what's my first instinct? When do I tend to make things better or worse when I walk into the room? Do people ask for my advice? Like if nobody's ever asking for your help, then either A, you're unapproachable, or B, they don't think you can help, or C, they don't want your brand of help.
And even that, you might not be a leader, you might just be an encyclopedia.
You could still be it. So that you've got to gain awareness of yourself, how you communicate, how maybe your love language, the way that what you expect of people, how much you project onto other people, your own attitudes and your own feelings. If you're in a bad mood and somebody responds to you and they're maybe quick, short, or to the point, do you interpret that as they're in a bad mood too? Or is it you're in a bad mood, they were to the point, and you put that on them? So I'm just giving quick examples, but your self-awareness has got to increase exponentially if you want to grow your leadership. Because here's the thing, you're probably good at some stuff. You're probably good at some stuff, and you should celebrate that. And there's some stuff you're probably not at, and there's where we need to start thinking, how can we improve those places? I would be careful about, that's probably getting too deep into the weeds. The idea that you can improve every one of your weaknesses, sometimes if you're weak at it, maybe you just let that thing go, all right? Unless, as a leader, it's something that's consistently negatively impacting other people all the time. Then that's something we do need to put some focus on.
Well, that's why you see the visionary integrator thing. The visionary leader has this charisma about them. They have goals. They see things in the future. They chase and they're after it all the time. And then that integrator leader is a person that's more grounded, tries to do objectives step by step, wants process and stuff. And so if you understand that I'm this type of leader and I am good at that, you never say, if you ever look in the mirror and say, I'm a great leader, that's your downfall. You can just expect to start going downhill from there. If you're not constantly striving to exceed where you currently are as a leader, you become stagnant. We've coached thousands of contractors. Many of them are pretty solid leaders in certain skills, and they vary. But as a broad statement and a broad coverage of those skills,
Not an absolute truth.
it's not an absolute truth. No, it's like I don't think anybody has it covered.
Yeah.
I mean, even the greatest. Like I have a big affinity for John Maxwell. I think he's one of the greatest leaders to ever walk the face of this planet. He's not perfect, and he knows it. That's actually the sign of a great leader, is that he still has humility. He still knows that there's personal growth and development that he needs to do, that he's still not getting everything out of everybody from a potential standpoint that he could if he was more effective. I deal with that on a daily basis. I could be better, for sure. I know where those weaknesses are. Some of them I have worked on to improve. Some of them I'm just never going to be good at that thing, so I have to put other people in place
it's the same problem that most people have, is that like we tend to look at ourselves from what we want and our perspective on the world versus looking at our impact on like what we want, what we're after. Like most human beings, myself, all of us included, we're really thinking about ourselves all the time, but generally not from a self-reflective perspective. So when you say, how often do you think that most company leaders are thinking about this on a regular basis? Most are probably not.
Okay. No, there's no way you can think about it on a regular basis. You drive yourself insane, right? But like maybe like once a quarter, we're just having like that conversation where we're reflecting: was I a good leader in these different areas, and how can I get better in the coming quarter type of thing?
Well, hey, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was to allow your direct reports to score you on your leadership skills, on your ability to communicate, on your ability to problem solve, on your ability to think as a visionary, on your abilities to integrate and implement. And I didn't want to do it because I knew the answers. I was like, oh man, I probably haven't done this stuff great. But that coach convinced me, hey, do the score. The best thing I ever did. I was pretty accurate with what I knew I was deficient in, but there were a couple of things that really opened my eyes. I thought I was a pretty solid communicator. What I came to find out was I wasn't giving enough time. I wasn't as open door of a policy as people thought I should be. And what I created was this idea that everybody had open door policy to me. And I had 200 people working for me at the time. That can't happen. And so what that really told me was I did a poor job of building the leaders that were in my company. That was the takeaway I had for that. I think that's the sign of a truly great leader, strong leader, is he builds other leaders.
I think that you should have a time of reflection. I mean, just for your own mental health, personal reflection should be something that's probably a part of your daily routine. One way or another, whether it's in the morning or at night, you should be reflecting back on your day and upon your own actions, behaviors, attitudes, and emotions on a regular basis. Evaluating your leadership, you certainly don't want to get too tied up with navel gazing like forever. Like you should take action, because how else what are you going to have to analyze if you don't do anything and you're just thinking about it all the time? We talked a little bit about this last night. So in your leadership, sometimes you just got to do some things and then be like, well, that went really well, or ooh, that might not have gone so great,
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to get out there and do it. The thing though that I have noticed, especially as we talk about the context of contractors and small business owners, as you guys are watching this, there's this component of this idea of leadership is going to be absolutely necessary for you to build your business. You're going to have to build leaders. People are like, I don't want to have to be involved in every single thing in my business. Well, guess what? If you don't want to do that, then you're going to have people who do that. Okay? And so, but the concept of leadership is not something that naturally develops for you as you build your company. That's the thing that people that people overlook. So if I'm really good at creating estimates, doing sales, or doing production, I can train people in those processes to do those things. And I might be really good at doing that. And I might be able to be like, this is how I generate an estimate. And then I can show somebody else how I do it. And if they do it the way I do it, bam, they're good at generating estimates.
But you're a trainer.
But so now I've taught somebody something, okay? And they might be really, really great at that, okay? Well, here's the problem. You didn't actually develop any leadership skills necessarily in doing that. Now, teaching is part of leadership, and maybe you're good at teaching, okay? But now I've created somebody else who can create estimates. Well, guess what? If I do that 10 times, I no longer need to worry about generating estimates anymore. What do I need to worry about? I need to worry about the people who are doing the estimates. And in teaching them how to do the estimates, I did not necessarily get any better at managing and leading those people. So what I'm saying is that, like, if you're working on your footwork in a particular sport, it doesn't mean that you're also increasing a different skill in that sport. Your footwork is getting better. So you have to be aware that leadership is not something that will naturally develop as you grow your company and grow your people. You have to purposefully invest in increasing your leadership ability and strength.
Yeah, it's you got to look at it like anything else. It doesn't matter whether you want to be a doctor, you want to be a biologist, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an athlete. You're going to be disciplined to the skills to learn that thing, right? Whatever it may be. Leadership is a profession. That's how you need to look at it. It is truly a profession. And so any profession that exists out there, you need to learn the skills. And to learn the skills, you have to be very disciplined. And even more than that, and why I say leadership is the one that tends to be the hardest one to really like see people become great at, is I think a lot of people want to lead because they have this belief of what leadership is. Leadership leads them to wealth. Leadership leads them to power. Leadership leads them to authority, that type of stuff. Where what it really leads you to is responsibility. You now have responsibility for other human beings and where they're going to go in life. They are your charge at that point. And if you don't put in the full effort to be as good of a leader as you possibly can, or strong as we like to say, or effective, another word for it, you're doing a disservice to every single one of those human beings you're responsible for. It's the thing I lose more sleep over than anything else in my life. I own this company. I run Contractor Coach Pro. I have several of you that work for me. I think about it constantly. Am I doing everything I can possibly do to serve you guys well? And my answer every single time is no. I know I could do more.
Well,
I
can
know I
they
could
drive
do
you crazy after a while, though?
No, because I am at peace with I'm doing what I can do the best I can do it. I'm just becoming better. As long as I'm becoming better every day, I'm at peace with it. And I think I'm becoming a more effective leader. The older I get, the more experience I get, the more time I put into personal growth, leadership skill gaining. I think a lot of people believe that they can go and listen to a video or listen to a book or read a book and become a leader. And that's not the truth. It's this practiced skill over and over and over and over again until it becomes a part of you, until it becomes an actual habit. We talk about those leadership habits. If we really want to connect with our people, which I think is really kind of the super skill of a leader, is being connected to the people that work for you, where they feel like, hey, he cares for me and you care for me as well. There's really, because you read a million books out there. I think the last time I did a count on it, there was like 37 skills I needed to learn, which got really confusing. And I'm like, which one am I great at and not good at? And there's a million guys that write books about it, and they're all great. And you really should take a lot of time to read those. It's a great place to start. But then refine it down to what are the ones that I really need to connect with people. Because if you can connect with somebody, you become magnetic. That's the inherent part of connection. And so those skills for us, we call them the leadership wheel. Number one, you got to engage people. You're the sales guy. You got to engage them in the vision that become a part of what it is that we do. And not only will you help us achieve what we're after, but we're going to help you achieve what you're after, which is more important to us. It's more important to see you grow, because if I see you grow, my company will grow. The byproduct will be the success of my company if you're successful. But that's a start, right? Like we get started with that engagement and this vision of how they're going to play a part in our business and how it's going to benefit them, not only while they're here, but for the rest of their lives. But then they come in. You got to go, yeah, that sounds great. I want to be a part of it. Then you actually have to give them the education. You got to educate them. And you got to educate yourself. You're continually in this growth thing, this idea of being 1% better every day. You hear it all the time. Why not 2% or 10%? Like, hey, let's go for it all. Because if you sell them on this vision and then you don't give them the tools and education, you were just a salesman, you weren't a fulfillment. And that person then goes, hey, I had some buy-in, and I lose that buy-in because I'm not getting what you said I was going to get. So if you do the education part and you educate them, you educate yourself, you all get better at what you're doing, the next piece of that is you got to set the example. You've got to be this person that's like, hey, man, you're not going to outwork me. Now, that doesn't mean, one of the things that always bothers me, I'm going to ask you this because I haven't talked with you about this, but it's been something bothering me here lately. This idea of leading from the front. While I believe there's value in that and you shouldn't discount it, I don't believe it's what you should always be doing. For example, if I led a sales team and I was out there knocking doors every day, I'm probably going to be a pretty ineffective leader because I'm out doing what it is I'm supposed to be teaching and coaching people to do well that affords me more capacity to teach, train, and coach more people. So where does that balance lie? And is that a truth that you should always be leading from the front as the example? Because that's a big part of what we teach in those habits that we need to have to connect with people is I'm setting an example, but that example I think is by the work ethic that you apply to your job so they see it that they should apply that work ethic in their job.
I have thought about this significantly quite a bit, and I think that the trait of example, setting an example, it might be the single most important thing that you could do. If you're going to establish like, okay, well, if I was to try and break down all these different things into a place I should consistently have focus, setting the example of what you want and expect out of your people, you're never going to go wrong there. I think it was Gandhi who said, be the change that you want to see in the world, okay? And so instead of going, I see this problem and I see that problem and people should be more like this and people should be more like that, you got to ask yourself, are you like that? And so leading from the front, I think, should always be necessary from the standpoint that I don't expect a character trait or I don't expect something out of people that I don't also expect out of myself.
One of the ones I see a lot, this is the one that, like, as an example, right? In our world, in the home service industry, there are lots of companies, especially in the restoration side of the world, where they want their people to work sun up to sundown. Whether they're selling, producing, what even administration, right? Like all hours, all the time. But then that guy is off on a boat. He's on a vacation. He works, he comes in at 10, leaves at 4. Like if you're expecting everybody else to work sun up to sundown, they're not going to if you're not the example for it. Now, I see some great examples of that. We have contractors that they do expect their folks to work sun up to sundown, but so do they. And even when the sun goes down, they keep working. They're still focused on growing. And I think that's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. As long as...
I think there's something wrong with working sun up to sundown all the time. I got no desire to do that.
Hey, for you, maybe. For you, maybe. For me, maybe. For him and the people that work for him, they're bought into it. They believe in it because he's setting that example that, hey, this is what I expect here.
Well, you'll attract to yourself. That's the thing. You will, and this also plays in a lot of different areas in life. As a leader, you will attract to yourself the thing that you are. And so if you're really not happy with a lot of the people that you have around you, if you're frustrated with your team, if you're upset with how people are acting or responding, you might need to take a look in the mirror and go, am I like that? Do I prioritize things that way? Is that how I speak to people? Because people will mimic, especially if you're the leader and you're the owner or you're the most successful person in the business, people who are aspiring to the success or the leadership level you have, they'll mimic what you do, not what you say, especially if there's a difference between them. So if they see you doing a thing and they're like, well, they do that and they're at this place, so I'm going to do that too. And so that's why if you're unhappy with the people around you, you're going to have to take a look at yourself and be like, are they just doing what I do? Is that what's happening here? These people are late for appointments. They don't call people back. They don't check their messages. And you look at your phone and your voicemail's full.
And you're late for meetings.
And you're always the one late for meetings. And you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it. And you make commitments that you either don't or can't keep. And then you're looking at your people and you're frustrated because they all showed up late for a meeting. And none of them answer their phone. And none of them are doing the things they promised they would do.
Yeah, that's why I asked you about example. I think that is such an important part of being a leader, is the example you set for others, because they want to aspire to be like you.
I see it when I talk to like young men too. It's one of my favorite and most funny things about like dudes who want to get a girlfriend or they want to get married at some point, and they all have that checklist, right? All of us have a checklist. She's got to be hot.
That's the first number one.
She's got to be hot, right? She's got to be athletic. She's got to be confident. She's got to have a job. She's got to be funny. She's got to be engaging. She's got to be, enjoyable to be around, and all of these things, right?
A woman's list for a man.
Right. And so, but my question is like, dude, you're none of those things. And if this magic lady that you're talking about exists out in the world, she's got options, and she's got a lot of them. Why would she choose you? Mm-hmm. And if you can't say, well, she'd choose me because I am that way myself, and that's why I want somebody like that. If you can't say that, then you either need to change your list or start to become the things that you're looking for.
Which applies to leading in a business.
Which applies directly to leadership as well.
You got to raise your standards.
If you're wanting all these high-level, high-talented people that work hard and put in effort and constantly growing, are you?
You better be that. Because those people are smart, and they don't want to work for somebody who they know they're just going to outpace.
So let's talk about the next one. I think we've beat this.
I just want to keep.
So the next thing, like we've talked about engaging, educating, setting the example. Now there's this concept of empathy, which I think is one of the most difficult things to do. This understanding what somebody else is dealing with and realizing that you may have been there at one point without giving sympathy. Empathy and sympathy are two very different things. Understanding that somebody's in the situation that they're in, whatever it may be, showing up late, they're sick all the time, they have a million excuses, problems at home, whatever the issue is, they're not learning as fast, they're not as sharp and as quick, or at least we don't think they are, but we don't think back long enough to go, man, we didn't get it quite as fast as we wanted to either. And instead of going, I understand, take the day off, or I get it, this is the problem, and we're making special circumstances for you. It's more this empathy of saying, hey, man, I get it. I've been there. I've seen what it is that you're going through. I've had problems in my life. I've had other people that have had problems in their life that work in our business, and this is what we did to resolve it. This is the action plan to keep you moving forward. I think that's one of those skills that people aren't habitual enough about whenever they're talking with their people, to really know where they're at, number one, understand what their shoes are, not my shoes, and then have a plan for them to get out of it. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. Empathy is the sign of a self-aware, mature individual.
You actually care a little bit.
Well, in that you can recognize, I had this conversation with somebody once, and I don't think he'll see this. So this person was explaining to me how annoying and frustrated they get with somebody else in our company. And that they literally use, I feel like this person is just an idiot sometimes. Like are you not smart? Do you not have a brain? Can you not think? And I asked him specifically, I said, can you point out a time in your life where somebody might have thought the exact same thing about you? His answer was genuinely and heartfelt, no. And I said, do you think that's true? And he said, actually, I don't think it's true. I simply have never thought to myself, when was the last time somebody got frustrated with me and thought I was a complete idiot? And so empathy is a sign of self-awareness, and it's a sign of maturity. You show me somebody who doesn't have empathy, and I'll show you somebody that either hasn't lived long enough or has forgotten the things that they've struggled with or dealt with in their life.
It's one of the key aspects of emotional intelligence. Just being very aware of how your emotions may affect the decisions you make when interacting with somebody else, when the reality is you haven't put yourself in their shoes yet. You haven't considered what they're going through, allowing for that to be understood, but not being allowed to be acceptable. Like that's the difficult part, right? I get it. All these excuses, they are valid, and I understand them. I have seen them before. This is what we're going to do to get out of that.
It's like I asked my friend, like, okay, well, how are you going to treat that person now that you know I think you're an idiot?
Exactly.
Or like if you switch that around for anybody else, right? Like all of a sudden you realize, like, if you had an open and honest conversation with one of your leaders and they go, yeah, there was a time when you started working here where I was like, I think this person's dumb. Like, what, they're legitimately dumb. I don't know that they're going to make it. And now here you are in charge of some people saying the same thing about them. So I know empathy is another horse I'll beat to death, just because I think leadership comes with so much responsibility. Yep. People seek the power and the prestige of leadership, but they ignore the fact that there's a weight that comes with it. So
anyway, a care.
Empathy. What's next?
Well, let's put it together. So if I've done some engagement and I've done some education, I've started to get some buy-in. They're starting to believe what I sold them in the engagement, right? And then I start to set the example. I start to get a little bit of activity. There's some activity.
People are copying you.
They're starting to copy and mimicking and going, hey, okay, I'm bought in, so now I'm going to start doing some things. And then when I show empathy, we're almost forcing that activity. We're saying we get it, but here's the action plan to get out of that. So we get a little bit more activity. And then we start to get a few results. And we celebrate those activities. Good job, well done, good job. So what we're giving them now is encouragement. We start to encourage them. We see that they have turned the corner a little bit and they're starting to do things the way that we need them to be done. Their activities are meeting what we are expecting. We've given them empathy and care. We've built an action plan to get them through those tough times. And those results are starting to pick up. And we're like, attaboy, brother. Well done. High fives. I think that part of it, we miss a lot as leaders too, because encouragement's hard. Negativity is easy. We see always as human beings, and it's just human behavior to always notice the negative. Somebody could do something right 10 times in a row and we don't say a word. The second they mess up, hey man, we need to have a conversation. We need to talk about it.
Encouragement has an ROI, and here's that ROI, okay? In order to encourage somebody, you have to pay attention. And I'll say this right now, some people it takes more attention to get some encouraging words for them, right? Some people you're like, I don't know if I could find a single thing to encourage them about. Pay closer attention. Now, here's the thing about paying attention, okay? If we've got a spreadsheet and Billy just does a great job putting his info into the spreadsheet or the CRM, whatever it is, okay? In order to encourage Billy about that, I need to be paying attention to that spreadsheet. So I pay attention to the spreadsheet. I pay attention to the fact that Billy does a good job in putting his information into that spreadsheet. I go to Billy and I say, Billy, you do a great job. You do a great job putting that information in that spreadsheet, man. I really appreciate the fact that you do that. We ask you to do that. You do it, and you do it well, disciplined, and consistently, and your information is always great, okay? A couple of things just happened. Number one, Billy will feel better. He'll be like, oh, great. Okay, thank you for the compliment and the encouragement, right? Number two, he knows that he's doing a good job and he doesn't need to change anything. Sometimes your people are doing a good job and they don't know that they are. And they're going, do I need to change something? Do I need to do more of this, less of that, right? But if he's doing a great job, he now knows, just keep doing what I'm doing, okay? Number three, he knows you're paying attention. You show me somebody who doesn't feel that they're appreciated. They don't feel they're appreciated. they're not encouraged, and they don't think anybody's paying attention, and I'll show you a $500,000 embezzlement.
Or a lack of effort. The effort will continue to go down, going where at what point do I get some recognition, whether it be good or bad. I think that's what human beings crave as much as anything else. This idea that I have value to the world around me. And if we understand that as leaders, that people are craving that, if we can give them more of what they crave, it's a dopamine hit. It's actually something scientific, dopamine. I went, hey, I got this thing, that felt great. I'm going to do more of it because I want more of that hit that I'm getting. Encouragement is actually a drug. Like the more of it you give, the more you get out of it. And like you said, there's an ROI for it. And like we said, we were getting those activities and starting to get a few results. The results start to get exponential at that point. When you see those results start happening, then we get the next thing that we can do.
Activity with discipline will equal results.
Yeah.
It works the other way too. So if my activity is a 6-pack of beer and a whole pizza, and my discipline is every day, do you think I'll see some results from that?
Yeah, for sure.
You bet your double chin I will see some results.
But I start seeing those results, and they're good, and they're consistent, and the discipline is there because he's being encouraged every time something. And another thing about encouragement, real quick before I leave it, make every effort you can to give that encouragement in front of people. Do it where Billy's being recognized in front of other people, because all those other people want what Billy just got. They want that dopamine hit. And so they go, hey, what could I do to get him to recognize, or her, to recognize me? And so they start to try to do the things that start to get the results that we want. And the more, and like I said, those results just become bigger and bigger and bigger. And now because they're consistent in doing them over and over and over again, now we have the chance to grow a new leader. Now we have the chance to empower them, to give them a little something that they can show what they're great. Hey, Billy, you're great at that spreadsheet. Could you show everybody how to do that spreadsheet right? Maybe do a class on it. Or Tommy, you're really good at this marketing thing. Could you show everybody how to do that? Or Jim, you're really good at this sales thing. Could you teach how to do a great door knock or whatever it is? And so you empower them to have a bit of authority, but you didn't make them sales manager. You didn't go, hey, that was great, be sales manager right away. I gave them a little something to see how they did with it. Then I coached them on it. Hey, that was really good. Did you consider this or consider that? And they start to grow with that empowerment. We start to give them more and more responsibility, and they start to move towards that leadership aspect of things if that's something that they're chasing. And then the last thing, the thing that I think is probably the most challenging for all of us as leaders, is the expecting part. Do we hold people accountable to those expectations that we set? Because I believe as leaders, we're all chasing pretty much one thing that's two things. We're chasing belief in us as a leader. We're chasing that somebody believes that we are the right person to get them to where they want to go in the world, and that we have what it is that they want. The byproduct of that is respect. You get this respect thing, which I think really a lot of leaders are chasing, that, hey, I would like to be respected as a leader. The way you get that respect is to expect people to do what it was that was asked of them, and when they don't, hold them accountable to it, because when you don't, they lose all respect for you. All those words that came out of your mouth that you said this is what this should be, you are not a man of your word. And that's the one thing that nobody can ever take away from you, is your word or your reputation. Anything else on those 7 E's?
Expectation is also what drives people to excel as well. It will drive somebody to excel. They know that they're expected to do well, and they don't want to disappoint. Most of us don't want to disappoint others. We don't want to disappoint ourselves. We don't want to disappoint our leaders, our boss, our spouses, our kids. We don't want to disappoint. And so understanding that there's things expected of us will drive us to excel. And so I do think that because we don't want to disappoint people, sometimes it creates the inverse effect of people avoiding responsibility and avoiding picking up the mantle and avoiding taking on a load because they don't want to feel the need to rise. That, if you feel that, that's a character flaw you need to address. Because here's what I can tell you, is that when there are things expected of you, you will rise to meet those things and you will grow, you will excel, and excellence will not come out of your life without having somebody expecting something of you. You should seek responsibility and you should seek ownership of something in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's basic, like really human instinct. We expect to survive, so we do everything we can to do that. That's where it all starts. Just survival is the first expectation that's put on us by other people. The fact that you're taking care of a family or a loved one or something. Now I have another expectation that's on me and I rise a little bit further. Now I'm a part of a company and I have responsibility. I rise a little bit further. It's amazing what we will rise to if we're really open to the challenge of it.
And your people will surprise you. Not all the time. Every now and then you might have somebody just pegged correctly, but your people will very often surprise you at what they can do. And they'll surprise themselves, which is also part of the results. So when somebody surprises themselves, like, I had no idea I had that in me. It's like you do. And I didn't know you had that in you, but I'm so excited we discovered that thing.
Now, last piece of this, and this is really important, it'll be really quick. You can't just do those things once. We call them the 7 habitual skills of connection. And habitual is the key word in that. I do them all the time. All the time, I'm engaging, educating, setting the example, empathy, encouraging, empowering, expecting. I'm doing it all the time. It's something that is just top of mind for me now as a leader, that I'm doing those type of things, and all of our people here are doing those type of things, and the people that we coach are doing those type of things. They actually take this leadership wheel that we have and put it up on the walls in their offices to keep it top of mind. If you don't do it habitually, you'll never get the connection and you'll never lead the way you want to lead.
I agree.
Questions?
No.
I thought you had a couple more. Let's go.
Well, I mean, one of them was going to be characteristics of a leader, which you kind of nailed that one. Because I was just sitting here thinking some of the best, we're contractor, coach, pro, right? So some of the greatest coaches that have ever coached. We think Vince Lombardi, right? We think John Wooden, present day Nick Saban. Love him or hate him, Joker's a great leader, right? And he's a winner.
He actually will tell you he's not.
James T. Kirk.
What he'll tell you is he's a great recruiter. He builds a great culture.
Somebody's got to lead it, right? But we think of these guys, they have all of these things that you were just talking about. Like, they have an expectation. You know, like, you're going to do this or you're not going to get the playing time that you want. They also have the empathy. You heard, Nick Saban a couple weeks ago talking about Jared Judy, who's in jail right now for drunk driving. He had Musa Muhammad played for him at Michigan State, and everybody told him to kick him off of the team. And he didn't do it, and he spent 15 years in the NFL, and he's got a beautiful family, and he's made a great life for himself.
Cares enough to put the effort in.
Exactly, right? But I just kind of summing all that up from what I heard, it's like you said, it's habitual. It has to be at all times. You need to be at least thinking about, am I doing one of these areas with the people that are within my company to make sure that they know, 1, that I care, 2, that I love them, and 3, that I do want to serve them in some way, form, or fashion.
The other thing they're really great at is the person on the other side of the equation, the one they're leading, has to want it.
Yeah.
Like, if they don't want it, they're not going to put their effort into them as a leader. Yeah. Like it's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street.
And so that's something you got to understand. Like, if they're not giving back and they're not making the effort, it's time to cut them.
So I know for me, when I was in the military, that's when I probably had some of the greatest leaders I've ever had around me. It's hard to trust them when there's a theory in front of you. Like, hey, this is how things are going to work. Even if you train it over and over and over again, it's very difficult to have that full trust because you've never seen it, like, truly work. Like, truly work. It's just like, hey, this is a great theory.
Can you guys go do that once for me first, and then once I see it, I can do it?
Yeah. But it's like,
you can't get in that real world experience when you're here compared to what you're going to do once you get overseas. But once we got overseas, and I was like, I don't have a choice but to trust and follow him because he's been here, I have not. And then I saw it work one time, and I was like, all right, I'm sold. I'm bought in because I see all this training we've done for the past year leading up to this point. It just paid off, and I saw it happen.
That's where those 7 habits, where the rubber hits the road. You
Yep.
get traction with your team, because all those habitual aspects, you're doing it over and over and over again. Those activities are happening. Those results are happening. That belief is starting to come into play. That's because they did something. They saw it work, and they go, okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, let's do more.
Once I saw that I could live through a firefight, I was good.
I can't even imagine.
But I mean, I was at that point, because you can build up something in your head to a point to where it's 10 times worse than what it ever actually is. And that's what I did. I was like, first shot's going to go off and I'm done. Like, I'm just send me home. Right? That was my thought, but I made it. I was fine. And now I trust the process. And I trust the people giving me the commands.
It's pretty awesome.
That I'm going to be okay. So, and I think it's the same thing when we start talking about contracting companies. Like, some of these sales guys, they need to see that sales process work from their leader. So that's why you have the training set up so they can see it actually take place, right? Your admin people, they need to see that this process works consistently, and they need to see the results of what they're doing so they can buy into it and see that this is a big part of what we're actually doing.
That goes back to that leading from the front thing. I think a lot of people misinterpret what leading from the front is. It means they're always in the front leading. No, they need to be able to do what it is that they're teaching. So that salesperson, like you said, hey, I've gone through training, I've seen all the theory, I need to see you do it. And so the sales manager goes out with them, does it live in the real world so he can see it and goes,
Makes
it does
sense.
work, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm out there selling it for him all the time. It doesn't mean I'm out there knocking a door for him all the time to get somebody to say yes to an inspection. It doesn't mean that I'm going out there and going through the supervision of a job all the time with my project manager. I'm doing it once, maybe again in the future, every once in a while, to keep them on that track of the process itself.
Yep. So, but I mean, those were the main 4 or 5 questions that I had that I wanted to cover with this.
Cool.
I think that kind of hits the nail on the head with what we were looking to accomplish.
You guys ready for some barbecue?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Have you heard that there's a social network just for you? Well, if you haven't, you're going to. It's the Contractor Collective. It's a purpose-driven social network that we built just for you, so you have a community that's just like you, sharing information to make us all better. No negativity, no distraction. If you're anything like me, you hate social media because of all the distraction and ads and all the other garbage, algorithm telling you what you want. This allows you to create your own algorithm to follow the people you want to follow and get the feed that you want to have. There's also all kinds of other training content, groups to join, fun stuff to do as a community of contractors without the distraction of traditional social media. If that sounds like a good thing for you, go to the Play Store, go to the App Store, download the app and join today, or join right below. In the description, there's a link. Invite all your friends, and we'll see you inside Contractor Collective.